Anybody else? Water? Hi, how are you? Yeah? Water? No? Okay. Anybody else? Sure.
We're not counting.
So there's still liberated?
Dehydrated, right? Anybody else? Water? Water?
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Erica, you said.
I'm set.
We have offices in Chicago.
I can't leave until it's all gone. That's
All right, well, the recording is going, so we'll start the meeting. We can call it to order, I guess. It's 2:03, so we're at posted time. I'll just do a brief roll call as part of introduction to everyone as well. So trustee Mike Maher. Here. John Krause.
Here.
Katie Now on behalf of Janet Herdig.
Here.
Tim Kenny, so no one from the school district. Rachel Ellerman.
Yep.
Therese Klein. Leonard
Sobчak.
Sobchak, thank you very much.
Here?
And then the business improvement district is currently represented by Erica Lang.
Yes, and I didn't realize people had to be appointed.
Appointed and confirmed by the board. So the bid did put forward Jake Brissett as their nomination. He couldn't attend today, but he'll be on the July 1st board meeting. I presume he will be confirmed for the next time so that Jake will be the official representative from the bid. So with that, roll call's done. The meeting has been publicly noticed, in case anyone's curious on that. And with that, we're on the introduction of the project team and advisory group members. So we have Phil and Steve here who can give a quick introduction of themselves and their firms.
Also, I'm going to pass it up. Walker and Erickson have teamed up on this project. Walker, not sure if any of you are familiar with our firm. He's about 65 years old, specializing in parking planning, design, restoration. So I'm the director of our planning division. We have 21 offices around the United States, an office in the Middle East. I work on projects right now in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, 17,000 spaces, new development coming out of the desert to Dubuque, Iowa, Appleton. We just were retained by the city of Racine to do some downtown economic development master planning. In Shorewood here, our role is the prime on the project, so we'll be leading the engagement with the assistance of Erickson that'll be handling the transportation element of the analysis. But Steve and I will be attending all the public meetings, and there are additional colleagues of mine that will be assisting as well.
And I'm Steve Corcoran, Director of Traffic Engineering at Erickson. Erickson is a civil, transportation, and landscape architecture firm. We have 5 offices, including our newest in downtown Milwaukee. And my role here is basically the traffic/transportation part of it, why the cars, bikes, and pets are moving, and then obviously Phil deals it when they stop, and help direct, come up with some solutions. As far as Erickson's been in existence, actually our birthday was last week. They've been 24 years old, which is easy to remember because my son was born 5 days after they started, and my youngest son, and then
How old is your son?
24. But I've been around for now 33 years with a couple different companies, with both nationwide, international experience, but primarily in the Chicagoland area and the adjacent states.
So that's our project consultants. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Bart Riepentrog, the planning director here for the Village of Shorewood. For those of you who don't work with me regularly, I work with the Plan Commission and the CDA quite often, and Village Board as well. But so that my role is the staff liaison to this advisory group to help move the project forward. So that's who I am. The Village Board approved this advisory group as representative members of specific other committees or representations of the community, and so with that, you've all been nominated to participate. So if you could just go around, just real briefly introduce who you are and where you're coming from in terms of your perspective and your committee role, and then we do have at least 2 other staff persons here, Representative DPW and police, obviously, that they can weigh in as well. So I don't know who wants to start, but if we just go around the room, just to let everyone know who we are and why we're here.
I'll start. My name is John Kraus. I am a member of the CDA
and going on 4 years as a resident in Shorewood.
Jeff Schmidt, obviously representing the PD and currently the day shift lieutenant.
I'm Katie Now. I'm here on behalf of the Elder Services Advisory Committee, and I've been a resident since 2015. And I'll mention that I live here in a multi-generational family with young kids and an older gentleman, so.
I'm Leonard Sobchak. I own Eastmore Real Estate. We own a large portfolio of apartment buildings in Shorewood, and I'm here representing the rental community of Shorewood, and I'm a former member of the BID.
Erica Lang, I'm the bid director, used to be the planner, and actually I worked with Walker for the 2005, 2007 studies, and actually used your template to do a parking study in the Central District Master Plan. So I don't know, when Jake comes on, I don't know if that means I can't come, but I am a resident here too, so.
No, staff is always, will be always invited to meetings as well. so.
Okay. I have opinions.
Hi, I'm Rachel Ellerman. I sit on the Ped and Bike committee here in Shorewood. I'm the chair, so I'm here to speak for the walkers and the bikers and everyone of a different mode of transportation by car.
I'm Therese Klein. I'm on the Planning Commission. I've been a Shorewood resident for 19 years. Does that count?
I'm Mike Marr. I'm on the village board, the public works chair. I've been a resident for 28 years and 14 years on the board. And I've been through many of the, from the original Walker study, through many gyrations of the parking as it has evolved over the last decade and a half.
Leanne Butchlick, representing Shorewood Public Works.
So that's the introduction of the team members here and the staff liaisons. To Erica's point, staff liaisons are always invited. So the clerk's office, I don't think could attend today, but Diane DeWitt-Hall and Sarah Bruckman, that's the department that issues the parking permit, so they will be heavily involved in a good reference for everyone to know, how that comes into the village. So that they were copied on it, and blanking if anyone else was, but the rest of us I think are all here. Just a brief overview, the project management plan I believe was shared with everyone when they were invited to the group. I do have extra copies here if you want to see it. It does include the project scope, so it's a good reference of the overall project expectations and goals. Yeah, we can pass it down if you want, and you can take one, if not, pass it through. As a brief introduction, it does include that the tag's role will be an advisory to the process, and the purpose of the tag will be to represent respective perspectives in the community, so you all, you're here for a specific reason to make sure that your groups are being heard with that. To provide advice and direction on the contract and project scope execution, so to make sure that staff and the consultant are on board with making sure that all these elements are being drafted. To assist with the dissemination of information, both throughout the planning process and afterwards, so we're hoping that you can bring your prospective groups to town halls, to meetings, to online comment forums, wherever they need to be, so that you know that your groups are being represented. To that point, we have a town hall coming up next Wednesday. I have posters and some smaller handouts here. If there's a place that you know that you can put them to reach your audience, or in a business or something, you're more than welcome to take them. Some of them are throughout the community already. The school district is putting it on their big sign. I know they're not here, but they have agreed to do that, so that should be out there soon. So that's the purpose of dissemination of information. And then the last one is to partner with us on implementation. So we can only do what you guys can help us accomplish. So that's the primary objective of what this group is brought together to do, just to make sure that we're moving forward with everything as projected in the scope. The primary public engagement will be through the town hall meetings and focus groups, and so we'll talk about those a little bit later, but just to keep everyone aware, I know there's been a lot of public interest in this particular analysis. These meetings, I don't think, are the place where those comments, necessarily will be gathered or heard. It's more for us to keep things moving forward. So, if people ask you, definitely invite them to come to town halls or volunteer for a focus group so that their perspectives are within. The village website does currently have an online submission form, so if people have a particular comment they want to provide, feel free to email them that link. It comes to me and I pass it along to the respective consultants so that they can, make sure that whatever is submitted is addressed in some form in the final analysis. So we've gotten, I don't know, probably a dozen or so of those already in the queue. So with that, I think that covers roles and responsibilities. Is there any questions on that and the role of the tag, as I'm calling it at least? Okay, so with that, I think I can turn things over a little more to Phil to discuss the goals and approach of what we're currently, getting ourselves into.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bart. So, anytime you approach a project like this, we have folks involved on our side too. Let's say another study, another plan. And those of us who have been in this business 21 years, been hired by the same clients many times to refresh old plans. Bart was very clear, and some of the other selection committee members, that this is an analysis. It's going to be a living document. We want some victories that are, near-term and long-term, plans to help guide improvements. But when our team's out in the field and we're doing our work, when we identify opportunities that maybe it's signage, maybe it's a policy that could be adjusted, maybe there's some pinch point that's causing some pain, we can identify those early. And it's not a situation where we're going to wait until the final report is issued to make potential changes or recommend those changes. We want this to be an active process. As I mentioned before, there are two pieces to this project, two sections we have that work hand in hand: transportation and parking. We know that poor transportation access points can impede people from accessing parking. Too much parking in a certain area can create loading, unloading on roadways, and create issues. Pedestrian crossing points, bike interaction. And we look at Metro Market in that whole area. I sat out there just a little bit earlier today, just watching, drinking coffee, and I saw a range of community members in age, modes of transportation, crossing. Some were using the equipment, some were just trusting and going. Some, pedestrians were having some conflict with the motorists, trying to determine who goes first. But that's part of our process, is this exploratory, the triage phase. Where are these issues? So our first phase is to do data collection, and we've already had folks out in the field doing that. We're collecting inventory, occupancy on parking. We're looking at all the policies that are involved with the current parking system. Some of the policies may be appropriate. Some of them may have outlived their useful life because land uses have changed, or there's a land use next to a residential area that has created a new challenge. So we need to, think about that. And even around the senior housing developments, we think about the demographics there, and are there proper, when it comes to the traffic, are there proper turn signals, left turn lanes, whatever it may be, the timing. We're going to be looking at all that as well. If you want to touch a little bit about on the transportation, then I'll finish the parking projections.
Sure. And again, the same thing with the transportation. We're in a data collection mode, looking at the whole street grid, the traffic control at the intersections, whether there's signals, stop signs, yield, etc. Looking at the bike plan, where the bikeways are, the pedestrian crossings, as well as gathering existing traffic data that's already available out there. And then once we get to understand what we have, we'll also do some supplemental traffic counts at certain locations based on what we think is missing, as well as maybe, depending on what we're hearing at the town hall, if there's a problem here, we weren't planning to do an account, but then do a traffic count like that. And basically get the understanding of how the whole network fits together. And where we see we're gonna see problems in areas, and then obviously then take in the people who live here and spend all their time here, and put that together with the problems they see and start trying to develop some solutions.
Let me ask, when did data collection begin?
The high school was still in session, so it was approximately, is it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
That was
Close to that.
actually my primary question was, did you see it during the school year, because
Yeah, we
that
hustled
obviously
because we knew that the
changes.
meetings were a little bit behind that, so we just said, let's just get up there. And our office serving this is out of Chicago, so it's an easy assembling of team and getting them up here.
And you mentioned the high school, so are you focused on the main corridors, or is the scope the entire village?
We are covering the village, so, but the main corridors seem to be where the hot spots are.
Yeah.
But we are looking into the residential areas and also the residential areas up against the university. We know that in and of itself is an environment that has different residential parking challenges.
I think the elementary schools too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was a topic of our last Bike and Ped meeting, the concerns about all of our students are walking in.
Absolutely.
And some of them are walking across these major arteries, but there's a lot of issues right next to the elementary schools too that are on.
Well, that's something we noticed as a team. You know, we did some research on the high school, the size of the high school, and you know, where do these students come from? Are they primarily bused in, or is there a large portion that exactly? So that's different than, you know, a traditional suburban big, you know, built in a cornfield high school, where the busing is a primary traffic issue. And this, we observed, you know, a flood of students coming up from the neighborhood, crossing the street, you know, at those times. And so we had folks documenting that and understanding that some kids are on bikes, some kids are walking, some have headphones on.
And did you document that by the elementary schools as well? Because that's really.
Yeah, they covered the entire area.
Okay.
And we're gonna be back and look at evenings and weekends, but once again, it's summertime, so those are, the evenings, weekends are gonna be the core areas of, you know, restaurant, retail, but, you know, we don't want to, and correct me, Bart, if I'm just overstepping here, I'm just being, sharing my thoughts. We want this to be timely, but we also want it to be right.